Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my amazing listener. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to episode 287 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices of things that you could be doing right now, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast your decision right now. I've got a great guest for you today. Look, I know I love all my guests, but this guest is probably going to blow you out of the water just a little tiny bit. This month, as you may know, if you are a listener, is all about amplification. I'm talking about amplifiers this month. So amplifiers of you, your message, your business, your brand. How do you amplify that? So I've got some great episodes with guests and some great episodes with myself, but all of March will be around that. Now, there might be more than one podcast a week, although I haven't managed to do that yet, but I've got lots of podcasts I need to publish. So you might see a run of them in the next fortnight. But my hope is if I can theme each month, then that means that when you're navigating what you need in your business, it'll be easier to find my podcasts that you need at that particular time. Like if you need a podcast that talks about, sales, for instance. Well, sales is going to be all in May. We're going to have great guests and talk about sales and marketing as opposed to marketing and sales. This is all about amplifiers. Next month in April is all going to be all about the small business basics. So that's my themes for the next couple of months that I wanted to let you know. But that's why I've decided to theme it. So it's easier for you to find out what's going on in the podcast and be able to refer back to it as your needs come up inside your business. What's an amplifier, you may ask? Well, for me, it's things like podcasting and media commentating, referrals, writing books, creating lead magnets, anything that helps amplify who you are and what you do, and of course, what you sell. It's basically what you do to attract potential buyers or get existing customers to come back into your world. Now, before I get into today's episode and my awesome guest I have for you, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my VIP marketing experience offer. So we are going to do marketing in a penthouse. Yep, I've hired a penthouse for a whole day. And so from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon, we are going to work through your marketing strategy for 12 months. Not only are we going to work through it, we're going to start implementing it because I want you to go away understanding how you can action your marketing strategy, not just how to do your marketing strategy. Now, there's only 6 spots left at the time of recording this. There are 4 spots available. It's intimate, it's fast-paced, and it could possibly be exactly what you need, considering we are almost 1 quarter into 2024. If your marketing's not taking you where you want to go, if your business isn't going the direction to reach the goals that you had hoped already with 1 quarter gone, maybe this is the perfect thing for you. It's on April 18th in Melbourne, although if you go to the website, you can actually sign up for the wait list for other cities as well. So how do you get there? Well, it's in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/287. Or you could go to bit.ly/VIP Melb, as in Melbourne. You can find all the details there. Or you know what? Just come and ask me and I will send you through the link. Of course, while you're on the website looking at that, don't forget you can buy my Small Town Big Impact book that has 107 simple marketing strategies. It's kind of like the marketing Bible, and the idea of 107 simple marketing strategies is to help you look outside the social media square with your marketing. Now, as I've alluded to, I have a guest today. My guest is someone you'll love at the end of this episode, I am sure, just as much as I do. Andrew Andrew Griffiths is the man who pushed me to write a book, who pulled me off some cliffs when I was writing said book, when it all got too hard, and now fondly actually remembers the writing process a little bit differently to me. I I've forgotten about all the cliffs that I tried to jump off while writing a book, and Andrew's here to ground me, to tell me all the stories that I'd forgotten about writing said book. He's brilliant, and he has a speaking career that I, for one, are very envious of. Now, I asked him to come on the podcast during March because, as you know, we're talking about amplification, and I wanted Andrew to talk to you about speaking and writing books as an amplifier for your message, your brand, your business, and you. But as you listen to this episode, the interview does take a turn that neither of us saw coming. It's better than I'd hoped it would be. It's more insightful than I could have imagined when I invited Andrew to come and have a chat with me. So make sure you've got your pen and paper ready, because this interview is a cracker for sure. I'm going to let Andrew introduce himself and his life story shortly, but he tells you actually bits about his life and himself all throughout the podcast because he is so masterful at storytelling. So here's Andrew. Andrew Griffith, I could not be more excited to have you on the Small Business Made Simple podcast today. So thank you so much for giving up some time to have a bit of a chat with us.
Jen Donovan, it's an absolute pleasure. Like, you give me the chance to talk and to talk endlessly at you. Of course. Like, how could I miss an opportunity like that?
Oh, wow. Very good. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Andrew, we know each other quite well. I have been to many of your events and chewed your ear a lot whilst I wrote my book, Small Town, Big Impact, last year. But for my gorgeous listener who may not have come across you or would like to learn more, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So probably first of all, I'll disappoint half of your listeners and say that I'm not that Andy Griffiths. So straight away everyone's just, oh well, I'll turn off the podcast now. So the other Andy Griffiths is, the Treehouse Stories, The Day My Bum Went Psycho, all of those kind of things. So I'm this Andrew Griffiths, or that Andrew Griffiths, the other side. I guess my claim to fame, Jen, as you know, is that I write books. And I've been writing books for many, many years around how to do business better. That's kind of the crux of that. But whilst doing all of that, I also am a speaker. So I've been speaking about a range of things, from success, from overcoming adversity, to all kinds of things as well, for many, many years. I live in beautiful Tasmania, and as you can tell by the garments, it's it's a beautiful summer's day here. So we're only wearing one jumper, basically, even though it's autumn. But you get the drift.
Yeah. And I've got my air conditioner turned up so high so the sweat doesn't bead down me as I try and look professional and do a podcast interview. Yeah, great. Well done.
I know, I love it. So as you know, I spent 30 years in Cairns. So this is my cryogenic beautification process. Moving to Tasmania, cold weather, like it'll I'm actually 114, but it's working quite well now, the cool temperatures are holding me together.
Beautiful. Freezing those wrinkles where they should be rather than creating more with sunlight. I love Tasmania. I'm so sorry if my listener is from Tasmania. It's a beautiful part of the world for sure. Oh,
It is.
dear.
Yeah.
So
It's happy to
Andrew,
make
sorry.
Sorry. I was just
You
going to
go.
say, it's the best move I ever made. I've been here for a couple of years now, 2.5 years, and I'm Tasmanian through and through. So I'm basically morphing into becoming a wombat, So, that'll be when my Tasmanian transformation is complete. Proudly so.
Beautiful. Okay, well, off air, I'll tell you a joke about that, but that's not appropriate for on air. So we'll move on from there. So my listener will be well aware by now that March has a theme, and that theme is amplification, or amplifiers of your business, of your message, of yourself. And so I really, as the person that I would come to if I wanted to learn more about book writing, authorship, speaking, that's where I really want to have a bit of a chat to you today about that. And Speaking has certainly been one of the best things that I have done to amplify my message and my brand and myself in my business, whether that's speaking like this on a podcast or speaking from stages and running workshops.
Mm.
So I really just wanted to get your thoughts on, using speaking to amplify yourself. Like if someone isn't a speaker, where do they start? Or if someone is a speaker, how do they improve that amplification?
It's such a big question and such a great question, Jen. I think um, the I think that the thought of like getting on a stage, whether it's to 10 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people, is, as we know, it's quite scary for people, the idea of doing that. And I think that my whole thing is to try and make it simpler, make it easier for people. I mean, I struggled with nerves. I found it, really intimidating to get on a stage. And I've been speaking most of my life. I was one of those cool kids at school that joined Toastmasters. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I know. You
Okay.
can imagine my social life was big. Um, up there with the gardening club, you know. But I think we kind of put all this enormous pressure on ourselves that if we get on stage, we've got to be an orator who's like Barack Obama or this beautiful statesperson or whatever. The reality is that I think what people want from someone presenting in any shape or form is someone who's passionate about their topic, someone who gives a damn, someone who is able to share experiences, someone who's able to be authentic. And I use a line that I know you've heard me say is that I feel like I became a great speaker when I actually stopped trying to be one. And it was like, stop trying to make everything technically perfect on the stage and really focus on what do you want to share with the audience? What is the message that you want to, give? How do you want to help? How do you want to serve?
Mm.
As well. So when it kind of comes to amplifying our message and trying to reach more people, have more impact, do more kind of things, um, speaking is just this incredible platform to do that. But if you're listening, going, "Oh yeah, but I'm terrified of getting on a stage, or I'm terrible as a speaker, or whatever," I'm just trying to let you know that if you've got something worth saying, that cuts through all the time. Now, I do a lot of speaker training, Jen. I'm never trying to change someone who's passionate or authentic about their topic. I'm never trying to say, well, your style needs to change to this or that or whatever, trying to become a mini me or a mini Anthony Robbins or a mini Barack Obama. You've got to be able to talk with authenticity. And if you can do that, then amazing things kind of happen. Look at TED Talks. I'm in that world at the moment. My partner's just got the thumbs up to deliver a TED Talk um, in Tasmania and in Hobart. And I know that, again, you look at that, most of the people that are speaking are not professional speakers. They're not 25 years in the speaking world. They've got something to say. And it's really lovely to see them kind of all going through the prep and being, getting ready to get on stages and share their big idea. Um,
Yeah.
the how do we get better at, how do we do all of that stuff? They're such big questions. I think the bottom line is you start small, like I did. So when I started kind of speaking as such, as in front of a room full of business people or whatever, was when I was living in Cairns and I ran a marketing company. And people would say, "Can you come along and chat about marketing? Can you come along and maybe because I got a big mouth, say, could you maybe, MC this charity event or, do those kind of things?" And so, I wanted to challenge myself and, be bigger. So, I started to do that stuff and I'm pretty sure I did it terribly, but I kind of kept doing it and kept doing it more. And then I started to share more of my story. And as I wrote books and started to become known for what I wrote about, whether it was marketing or any of those kind of things, that I could talk about that specifically. I talk about that book, or I talk about some specific topic. So it's not like I kind of went from never ever speaking to now I'm in front of 10,000 people. It was this kind of journey, that
Mm.
really had an impact. And probably one of the biggest stories for me, or one of the biggest moments where I think I appreciated the value of being able to share my knowledge and my expertise and my experience was when I spoke at an event in Cairns for the Cairns Business Women's Club. And I just released a book, so this is about 15 years ago, called The
Mhm.
Me Myth. And and I was asked to, they said, look, we've heard all your business stuff, like, you know, um, thanks, guys. Tell us your story. Like we all have asked around, and no one really knows your story. Are you a Colombian drug lord on the run from the cops? It's a bit suspicious that we don't know your story. And anyway, of course, my book had just come out, which was quite a personal take. And I remember doing this, going, oh gosh, they want to hear my story. Well, that'll take 3 minutes. What am I going to talk about for the other 57 minutes? Anyway, I thought, bugger it. Oh, okay, warts and all, I'll tell you my story. I don't have a birth certificate. I grew up as an orphan. I started that whole violence as a child, abandonment, blah, 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 right through to who I am today. And I just remember looking around in the room and I knew these 200 people. Small town, you know what it's like, you
Yeah.
know everyone. And
Yeah.
which makes it harder to get up when you know everyone. And now out of the blue, I'm telling them this story. And I'm looking around and there's people who I've known for 20 years sobbing, crying. And I'm going, oh God, is it that bad? My presentation. A- And I remember, kind of going, I was quite blown away because I was a little bit matter of fact about it because I really didn't think anyone wanted to hear
Yeah.
and it was incredibly powerful is the only thing. And then after I finished, I was amazed by the response. And there was one lady there, a lady called Angela Toppin, who is like the headmaster, I guess is the technical term, of the one of the schools in Cairns. And when Angela asks you to do stuff, doesn't matter what it is, you do it. As a 50-year-old male type thing, Angela says it, you jump. Like she's
I
the
want
head
her power. I
She's
love her
the
power.
headmistress for all of us. You get it, like, you look at your phone when someone's ringing, go, oh, I won't take that. If Angela rang now, I'd have to pause this interview and take the call. Yes, Angela. You didn't want me to fly to Cairns and talk to, yes, Angela. No problem, Angela. It's like, she's terrifying. And she came up to me and she said, Andrew Griffiths, I had no idea how selfish you are.
Oh,
And oomph, straight to my heart, right? Straight to my, she's a wily old chook. And she said, you haven't shared that story with the people here in all the time that I've known you. You've been telling us all about business, where the most powerful words that have ever come out of your mouth were in the last hour. And people need to hear your story. They need to know that where you come from doesn't matter. What happened in your childhood doesn't matter. What you choose to do, how you decide to live your life, how you carry yourself, how you grow, how you influence others is all that matters. And you haven't shared that. And I had no idea you were so selfish. And she walked off.
mm,
And I went, oh, she's good. She's good.
mm,
She's crafty, the old
yeah.
cow. Like and 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 that had a huge impact on me. And it was amazing how, and of course then, like that was a spur that I needed to become a person to share my knowledge, my experience, my everything, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah,
Totally
I
amazing.
had a very similar experience. My audience, my listener would be aware that I didn't really start speaking till I was 40. It was when I decided to push myself and, learn how to speak. I was just like, this is ridiculous. You're 40 years old and you don't know how to speak like in front of an audience. Let's go. So I joined a How to Speak Your Way to Success course, I think it was, run by Lisa McGinnis Smith and David Penglaze. And that was where I learned to speak. And David Penglaze, I don't know whether he was in your audience that day and heard that conversation, but that's what he basically said to me, like when I was going through, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. Do people really want to hear anything I've got to say? He was like, well, it would be selfish not to.
Mm,
If you don't share the knowledge that you have and the stories that you have, then you're just being selfish. You're not helping the world to become a better place. Now, you can call me all the names under the sun, but if you call me dishonest or selfish, you have got me where it hurt the most. And I've never
totally,
forgotten that. And
totally.
I think about that quite often, about just sharing things and things, well, you know, maybe someone else needs to know about that. And yeah, just sort of go on and share those things with people. One person might be the only person that needs to hear that day. But yeah, it's
It,
very interesting.
I think David and Angela did an online course in how to shame speakers, that need to get out and do that. They did that same kind of a approach, but it is very, very interesting, that side of it, because I think that we all kind of have this view. I didn't, but it would be easy to think that I didn't share my story because Andrew doesn't talk about his background because it was a bad background. Not really. I just thought, who cares? Like it was in
Yeah.
the past. I've kind of moved on. I've let it go. I just didn't see any relevance. But I didn't make the leap behind being able to share that to inspire others, or being able to share how to market your business, ideas and thoughts around that to help others. We go, oh, someone's talking about marketing, and it's very easy to go, oh, they're teaching you about doing business, not really looking at what that can actually do. Now, you talk about marketing to a room full of people, Jen. You know, there'll be people in the room who are struggling. There are people in the room whose business needs marketing. There are people in the room who financially are under the pump and need more customers and need to increase their revenue or their profit whatever it might be. You can show them how to do that. You can share that and you go, well, all I'm doing is teaching, but what you're actually doing is in many instances almost kind of transforming their lives, taking stress and pressure off of people. Um, and I think that we underestimate our story. We
Mhm.
we we forget about what that impact could be. We very often go, who wants to hear about marketing? Who,
Yeah.
who wants to hear about my story? Who wants to hear this? I've just got the fortune now of being able to have, like, let's say about 25, 30 years of doing that, where
Mhm.
I now, I get the emails from people who said, I was in the audience,
Mhm.
25 years ago when you did that presentation. I was at that event that you did in Alice Springs. I was the guy in the front row that
Yeah.
came, and you don't realize the impact that had on me, and like stuff that I would, to be honest, barely even remember doing,
Mhm.
and you kind of go, wow, like the power of our words, the power of our story, it's actually, we are selfish if we don't share that. And we're playing small if we don't
Yeah.
share that. And people go, oh yeah, but I haven't got any, you got this interesting background and you're a diver and you're, blah, right, but my story's boring. I've never, ever, ever met anyone ever that has a boring story. They just have a boring way of talking about it. Because as humans,
Yeah.
we're fascinated and our DNA is coded for you to share your story. I might learn something out of that that's going to help me to survive. If you bring it to a really basic level, that's what it's about. You tell me the story about that waterhole over there. People go there and don't come back. Well, there's probably bad juju happening in that waterhole. I'll go over here to this one where there's puppies and unicorns swimming around. Our brain is really conditioned to it. So the amplification idea of this is almost like a ripple effect as well. We can challenge ourselves to grow bigger by getting on a stage and doing what scares us, starting small and building up, but also how you sharing your story, you sharing your ideas, you sharing your experience, telling the story of your business perhaps, or whatever it might be to whoever's listening, just it creates extraordinary ripples that I think are profound, and I do think it's selfish if we don't share that stuff.
Yeah, that's such a great, yeah, something, a really great takeaway from this particular podcast. You know, just even that's the one thing someone takes away that is incredible, because we've talked about amplification and speaking on stages, but really tell your story through your social media, tell your story
Totally.
through your email marketing, tell your story through podcast interviews or on your own podcast if that is what you've got. But there are lots of ways you can tell those stories and amplify, and using speaking to amplify your business, just not from stages.
Yeah, that's the real message, isn't it? So rather than me being the guy to talk about speaking, it's probably me be the guy to say, hey, let's talk about telling your story, sharing your story, whether it's
Mm.
in writing, whatever it might be. And when we when we share our story, so much changes. Like I teach storytelling. I'm and I throw in these different stories, to showcase what changes when you share that part of the story. It's really funny. Uh, Talk about this amplification. 30 years ago, I was running a marketing class, and I'll try not to do the too many of the "when I was a boy" kind of stories. But I was running a marketing class for Queensland State Development somewhere in North Queensland. And I remember I met this little kind of mousy guy sitting up the back of the room, and I'm, being me, loud and obnoxious. And, so what do you do? And he said, my name's Robert Watson. I make cheese, and I make really, really good cheese. And I went, good on you. And why are you here today? Well, I want to build an organic dairy and and I want to kind of grow and make cheese and yogurt and stuff like that. And I went, good on you, Robert. I like hearing that. Anyway, of course, since then he's built this giant organic Mungali Creek dairy. Is now a huge business, you know, um, and it's hilarious. And I just was, I tell the story. One of the things that I love about it, they do a lot of lactose free kind of stuff. And I was checking out the website the other day, and there's this great photo of Rob on the homepage, big banner, and it's like, so why so much of our, product lactose free is because I'm a lactose intolerant farmer, a dairy farmer. And it was like I didn't know that story. I didn't kind of, do that. But over the years of working with him, and I ended up consulting them. They couldn't afford to pay me at the time, so I used to get an esky, full of dairy products. I'd leave the farm with this esky of yogurt and butter, just what I needed. Then I was 150 kilos, so I needed cheese, yogurt, and it was awesome stuff. So you just, it was terrible. But I also, they were struggling at a time when organic was really just starting and biodynamic people didn't know how to spell, let alone what it really was. And the real difference, what really transformed their business, in my view, was that they started to share these great stories about how they
Mm.
did things differently, how like they made it like a gumshoe kind of tracking thing than when they lost their gumshoes in the mud, and how they built a cow vacuum cleaner. This you wear your cows into a shed and it sucks all the flies off, and then they collect all the flies, kill them with carbon dioxide, and use them as fertilizer, on the paddocks. And they just had these great stories, ways that they had like numbers or little things that they used to put on the chickens. So you'd be able to kind of keep track of the chickens. And I don't know, like every time you turned around, there was this real beautiful way of how they do what they do that was all about trying to avoid using chemicals or trying to avoid, whatever it might have been that they would do so they could offer organic and biodynamic um, products. But it was really interesting how their business changed as they started telling stories. Because before that, it was just
Mm.
an organic dairy farm and kind
Mhm.
of whatever people made that mean, for themselves. As they started to
Mhm.
share better stories, that's when they started to grow. They started to get more grants. They became featured in the media more and more. They became really known for what it is that they were doing. And you just really saw how that kind of ramped out, because what they did on the day-to-day basis that they didn't think was the slightest bit extraordinary was extraordinary to so many other people. And
And
that's
that's
the
so often the case, isn't it? So often the case, like you're saying, you've never met anyone with a boring story, perhaps just a boring way of telling the great story. But keeping on this theme of storytelling, as I mentioned at the very start of the podcast, you were the person who put up with me whilst I wrote a book last year. I have very different memories of it to what you do. I don't know where you get some of your memories of me freaking out and things like that. That never happened. It was a breeze. I don't understand where you get these other stories from. But I do remember sitting in a retreat in Hobart, which was a book writing retreat. And one of the things you said was, if you need more words, tell more stories. So
yeah,
again, filling your book with stories that make, for me, I've got 107 marketing strategies in there, but nearly everyone has a story behind it, whether it's my story or someone else's story that I've worked with or know. But it is that storytelling that makes it more memorable and more perhaps palatable.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. We have vastly different recollections of that whole book writing process, publishing process, launching process, books in
Yeah.
general, kind of element, which is I'll publish my own podcast with my memories of it. I think we can have dueling podcast memories, um, but yeah, it's I'm just so big on this currently. I mean, I've always been big on storytelling, um, but I think that it's very easy to think of it as it being a bit twee. I think it's very easy to go, oh, like customer service. It's one of those things, oh, we've all heard about that, or social media. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all, we put storytelling into it. I think nowadays, great, wise, smart, strategic storytelling for business owners is easily one of the greatest tools that you've got to build your business. There's no doubt telling the right story, sharing the right stories, um, can have a huge impact on our customers.
Mhm.
Our community, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And that we storytelling is such a versatile tool. So we can have an origin story. This is my founder story, where most of us probably heard that as a concept. Tell the story of why you're starting your business. But I think there's like 20 or 30 other types of stories that you can and we should tell, from your product story to your how did you overcome COVID, your COVID story, your
Mm.
adversity story, your where you're heading story, your community, what are you doing in your community, your product stories, your customer stories, your team stories. Like you start looking at them a little bit differently. You go, they all serve a purpose and they all bring people into your business. They show people what it's about, and we live in this wonderful kind of era where we love to engage with storytelling. Look, we went out for breakfast this morning, and I just smiled as I looked through the menu and looking at it. Like, it wasn't poached eggs on toast; it was golden poached eggs on toast, and Golden is an organic brand down here for eggs.
Ah, okay.
The sourdough bread is not sourdough bread; it's Pigeonhole, which is a famous bakery down here. Pigeonhole, sourdough bread. I think it actually said famous, the famous Pigeonhole sourdough bread. Everything on the menu had a bit of a reference to the maker, reference to the source, reference to, to where it comes from, where it's been
Mhm.
developed, and it made that menu so much more meaningful, because all of
Mhm.
a sudden it sent this message of it's all about the quality, it's organic ingredients, it's Pigeonhole, everyone in Hobart kind of goes, ooh, Pigeonhole, it must be
Or for
great.
someone like me who had have no idea, then I'm on to Google. What is this famous pigeon about type of
Yeah,
thing? So I'm Googling and potentially, he's referring a customer to another small business.
yeah, great. Exactly. And so, with the stories now, we see this great way to change things. I mean, I was in Japan. I don't know if you've heard me share this story before, but I ran into a chap. It was a study tour kind of thing. I went with a client, and and we met the CEO of this company that has a lot of restaurants throughout Japan, and it's like it's not a franchise. They own all the restaurants, and they're all the same. They're 3-story, and they have like a sushi bar, yakitori bar, and then some other kind of restaurant at the top. And they've been around forever. Huge, 400 of them. I think that they have employed 40,000 staff, etc. Um, and he was telling us this story. It was amazing. He said, we were feeling under pressure in Japan that everyone wanted food faster and cheaper. So we're going, how do we keep changing what we're doing so that it's faster and cheaper? He said, and we, as a big business, we were moving closer and closer to basically being a
Mhm.
glorified McDonald's. Putting
Mhm.
in the sushi train, making pre-cook all the food, and just almost like a buffet, element. And he said, they're an old company, and he said our board of directors had to make that decision. We're at the crossroad. Can't go any cheaper. Can't do it any faster. The only way we can do this now is to become a fast food business, and all that entails. And they turned around and said, you know what, bugger it. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to tell better stories. And you straight away go, well, how the hell is that going to change anything? Blah, blah, blah. So what they did was they started this amazing education campaign initially with their own staff to tell the story of the food. company's amazing. They've got all their own farms. They've had their own farms for 200 years, right?
Wow.
They've got like eighth generation soybean growers, and the same family for 8 generations. An amazing story. And one of their main dishes is this tofu dish. And so took all their staff to the farms, because even the staff didn't know really about it all. They started doing great videos inside the restaurants. They started email campaigns about, this is who we are. And the bottom line was saying that we are all about quality, and that is our element. We are so passionate and committed to that. But that means that when you buy from us, this dish, any of the food that we're selling, it's going to take a little bit longer to prepare it, and it's going to cost a little bit more to buy it. If you want it cheaper and faster and not as good, we suggest you go to someone else. In that first year, what changed was they sold $30 million more of that one dish that
Oh,
they
wow.
did in that thing. Then by the end, and they increased their revenue by $300 million overall. All they did was tell different stories. Then, as they surveyed their customers, what changed was they changed them from, the customers went from faster, cheaper to the, we love it, great quality, happy to wait, happy to pay, rah, rah. Same customers changed their mentality. He said there were no complaints about waiting in the line anymore. There was no issue about price increases. It was such an extraordinary shift. They simply told a better story. That to me is the power of storytelling. Sorry about my thumb thing, you know.
It
So,
is. It's very powerful. Oh my goodness, you've got so many.
I
For the
know,
people that are listening to a podcast, they're probably wondering what the heck is going on. There are
I know
things happening on Andrew's screen.
and recognition, bits of thumbs and balloons, and
Ah.
I think this is a balloon one. Sorry to those of you who are listening. It's very hard, but you'll know what it is. I just keep forgetting to turn it off, and but anyway.
Oh, Andrew, this has been such a great chat. And I think, I really wanted to speak to you about, speaking and authorship, but I think it's even been more powerful than that, talking
Mm.
around telling your story, understanding the power as an amplifier that your story can bring to your business, to your brand, to yourself. But if people, before we finish up, if people are listening and they're just like, well, I don't know where to start with my story, do you have any tips? Like, is it just a matter of doing a brain dump? Is it a matter of re-listening to the podcast where you rattled off 10 or 12 different stories they could be thinking about and they need to write those down and think about them? What's your tip?
Yeah, I think the tip is, first and foremost, try and have a bit of a mental shift, and just go, look, understand that no one on the planet has the same experiences, moments, ahas, realizations, learnings, etc., as you. You're unique. Everyone listening to this is unique. There's stuff that you can share through your stories that is of great value to others, that might make their life easier, their business easier, their health and well-being better, their relationships better, their family life better, whatever it might be. So first and foremost, appreciate that you have something worth saying, because you do. You do. Everyone listening does. Secondly, start by sharing some of that. If you're in business, and I'm assuming that you probably are listening to this, start by sharing more of you, on your website, in your social media. Start sharing a few more of these other stories, and notice notice the reaction from others when you start to share more. The old, God, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. Third, maybe look at, are there opportunities for me to get on a stage locally, even in a small room, and get up and kind of, well, I'd like to share my story to inspire others or to help others or whatever it might be. Start small, start in ways that are easy, and then move on to that. You don't actually have to get on a stage to speak,
Yeah.
is my take. I think it's what you're saying there, Jen. But do share your story, and appreciate that is you amplifying what it is that you do. But it also encourages other people to do the same. So it kind of starts a lovely chain reaction. So that's probably what I would suggest. There are lots of great books around about storytelling as well. Of course, I can't remember any of them, off the tip of my head, but trust me, there are great books out there about storytelling. Um, but but again, the key is just start sharing your stories. Simple as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you'll be really surprised the reaction that you get, the community that you can build around telling your story. Yeah, I absolutely love hearing other people's stories and reading other people's stories
Mm.
and knowing that you have a connection that you didn't realize you had with them, which is always a lovely thing when you are building communities and building businesses. So, Andrew, this has been great. I knew it
Thank
would be great, but it has been great.
God, I'm feeling under pressure here now. Like, imagine if it was lousy, you know?
I know, right?
That'd
Well,
be an
you
awkward
probably
close. Andrew,
yeah.
this has been really average, thank you. This has been really okay. Yeah.
I just wouldn't publish it. Yeah, let's be frank. It just would no one would hear it if it was terrible.
So Jen, when's our podcast episode going live? Oh, soon. A few technical problems, but we
Yeah,
recorded
yeah, yeah.
8
I
years
didn't
ago.
press record.
Yeah. Oopsie, oopsie. Well, we must do that again someday. Yeah.
Yes, block. But
I'm on to you.
anyway,
I'm on to you.
if my amazing listener would like to learn a little bit more about you or about, your author retreats or your speaking retreats, where's the best place to send them?
AndrewGriffiths.com. That's the easiest. It's
How
just,
easy is that?
Google me, and don't get me confused with the other Andrew Griffiths or Andy. He's Andy, I'm Andrew. We've cut up the world into he owns half and I own half.
I
My
love that.
nemesis.
I love that. I'm glad there's not another Jen Donovan. Otherwise, I might know you crisis.
Thanks for having me, Jen. Always
Thanks so much. This has been a blast, and we'll chat again really soon.
perfect. Love to. See ya. See you, listeners.
How did you enjoy that? Can you see what I meant when I said I got Andrew on to talk about speaking and writing books, but it totally went another way? A brilliant way, though, right? Storytelling, my best podcast friend, is how you get to move your business forward, how you attract the people who want to get to know, like, and trust you. So, how much do you have it in your marketing? Go and do an audit now on your marketing. What stories do you tell? What stories do you have to tell? Storytelling is such an important part of community building, and community building is such an important part of your business's success. Now, I think that this podcast, you need to listen to it a couple of times because storytelling is so powerful, and yet it's a marketing strategy. It's an amplification of your business, your story, your brand, that we kind of forget about. So make sure that you have listened, taken notes, and go and do that audit and think about your own stories. What did you take away? I'd love you to send me an email or a DM or jump into the Like Minded Business Owners Facebook group and let me know. As I said, I've got other great episodes coming up in March all around amplifiers. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you know when the episodes land. Otherwise, if you're not on my email list, then come and get on my email list. Go and download one of my freebies on my website, and that will get you on my list. But anyway, that's it for episode 287. If you loved this episode and found it valuable, you could do a couple of things. You could share it with another small business owner. You could take 30 seconds out of your day to leave me a rating and a review, or you could just share it on your socials and tell everyone how much you love listening to Andrew and Jen on the podcast. Again, if you aren't available, that's not really what I want to say. If you aren't in my Like Minded Business Owners Facebook group, then come and join there and join in the fun. I would love to see you there. There's opportunities to ask questions, promote your own business, and just hang out. And before I go, did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode again about amplifiers? And this time we talked about podcasting as an amplifier, and I had a guest. Kirsten was a great guest to talk about podcasting. It's definitely worth a listen. So if you haven't listened to that, head back there and have a listen. But in the meantime, if we're not hanging out on social, let's get social on social. And of course, whatever you do, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.